Hey everyone. So you're thinking about becoming a tourist guide, huh? Trading in the 9 to 5 for cobblestone streets and ancient ruins. Sounds pretty amazing, right?
It does.
And the cool thing is, you were smart enough to send over some resources from RoleCatcher to really dive into this career path.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this stuff is fascinating. We're talking about what it really takes to be a tourist guide, what skills you need to sharpen, even how to get your foot in the door. So are you ready to jump in?
Absolutely. I'm really excited for this deep dive because I think it gets past that surface level stuff. It's not just about, reciting historical facts.
Right.
That's definitely part of it.
Of course.
It's more about creating this experience for people.
Oh, 100%. And the RoleCatcher Career Guide really dives into like the day-to-day, the nitty-gritty of what a tourist guide actually does. And they describe it as assisting individuals or groups during travel, which to me sounds super broad.
It is broad. And that's because the role itself is so incredibly diverse. Like one day, you could be leading a tour through the Louvre Museum, and then the next day, you're navigating, a local market with a small group.
So it's like this blend of history, culture, logistics,
Yeah, yeah.
and probably a lot of crowd management, I'd imagine, thrown in there too.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong there. But here's where it gets really interesting. The guide stresses that tourist guides now, they can't just, be knowledgeable. They have to be tech savvy too.
Oh, wow.
They mention audio guides and even like virtual reality. Those are becoming much more common in the industry.
I actually had not thought about the VR component of that.
Right.
That's really interesting. I can see how that would totally enhance a tour, but it also means that like guides need to be comfortable with using that kind of technology. It's like blending the old and the new.
Exactly. Like imagine you're explaining the Colosseum to a group, but they're also experiencing a gladiator battle in virtual reality.
Oh, wow.
Like it just adds this other dimension to storytelling.
Wow. And since you mentioned storytelling, the guide also talks about how important language skills are, which I would imagine like, being multilingual is a huge asset in this line of work.
Oh, absolutely. It's essential. The guide really stresses how important it is for guides to be able to communicate effectively in whatever languages their tourists speak. It's about, breaking down those communication barriers to create a really inclusive and engaging experience for everyone.
Right, right. It's about making everyone feel welcome and like they're part of it.
Exactly. 100%.
That's so important. But let's be real for a second. There's got to be more to being a great tourist guide than speaking a bunch of languages and knowing how to like work a VR headset, right? What about the human element of it all?
Yeah, for sure. You're totally right. Technology, it can definitely enhance the experience, but it's that human connection that makes a tour truly memorable,
Yeah.
And that's where I think this idea of cultural understanding really comes into play.
Okay, so tell me more about that. Like, what does Rollcatcher say about why cultural understanding is so important for tourist guides?
Well, they really emphasize that it's not enough to just memorize a bunch of historical facts and figures.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you need to know the basics, but it's about understanding the nuances of a culture, the customs, the beliefs, even like the humor. It's about painting that complete picture for people.
So it's like going beyond the what and really diving into the why, right?
Exactly. For example, it's one thing to say the Colosseum, it was built in 80 AD,
Right.
but a really great tourist guide, they'll connect that fact to Roman values, like their emphasis on these grand public works to impress and entertain.
Oh, that makes sense.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It's about bringing those facts to life.
Exactly.
And I imagine that takes a certain kind of communication, right? It's not just about being well-spoken. It's about being engaging and relatable, too.
Absolutely. The guide actually lists strong public speaking and presentation skills as like essential for tourist guides.
Mm.
You need to be able to capture people's attention, keep them interested, and make that information resonate with them.
It's like being a teacher and an entertainer all rolled into one.
Yes. A little bit of both, for sure.
Yeah. Which, it makes me wonder, what does Rollcatcher say about actually, like, breaking into this field? It seems like it would be pretty competitive, right?
Oh, yeah. You're not wrong about that. But the good news is there are a lot of different paths you can take. The guide has a whole section on gaining hands-on experience, and they suggest things like volunteering at museums, maybe assisting with local tours. Those are great ways to just kind of get your feet wet and see if it's even a good fit for you.
It's like an apprenticeship for storytelling.
Exactly.
You get to learn from more experienced guides, and you kind of see what works and what doesn't in the real world. Not to mention, I bet those experiences look great on a resume, right?
Oh, they absolutely do. Speaking of resumes, once you've got some experience under your belt, the guide really stresses the importance of networking, like joining professional organizations, going to industry events. Those are all fantastic ways to meet other guides, stay up to date on any trends, and you might even find work that way too.
Yeah. Building your connections, I bet, is really key in a field like this.
It is,
It's not just what you know, it's also who you know.
100%.
And this is where things get really interesting, I think. Like, how do you stand out in such a crowded market?
Right.
What does RoleCatcher suggest?
Well, let's talk about that.
So how does someone stand out in a sea of tour guides? What does RoleCatcher suggest?
Well, it seems like, in a world of digital resumes and online profiles, presentation is everything.
Yeah.
The RoleCatcher, your competitive edge source, they really dig into this.
Okay.
And they say it's not just about listing your skills, it's about showcasing the right skills
Right?
to the right audience.
Makes sense.
And get this, they even have AI tools that can help with this, which I thought was fascinating.
AI tools for building your tour guide resume. Wow. What a time to be alive.
I know, right?
So it's kind of like, you know how we were talking about tailoring your tour to your audience?
Right.
It's like doing that, but for the digital world.
Exactly. Exactly. Like imagine you're leading a tour for a group of, let's say, history professors.
Okay.
You wouldn't give them the same spiel that you'd give a family with young kids,
Oh,
right?
no way. The professors would probably throw their books at me.
Exactly. And it's the same idea with your resume. You highlight different skills, different experiences, depending on who you're trying to impress.
Oh, that's a great analogy. And speaking of showcasing what, the guide also talks about, like having a strong online presence, which I bet is pretty crucial these days, right?
It's not even just crucial, it's almost mandatory. The guide actually suggests that, you should create a website or a blog where you can talk about your experience, you can share testimonials, even just let your personality come through. It's your chance to tell your story as a tourist guide, basically.
Yeah, it's like a digital portfolio
Exactly.
where you can really show people, not just tell them.
Yeah.
And I imagine social media plays a huge role in all of this too, right?
Huge. Like sharing photos or videos, even little snippets of your tours on social media, it can help you reach so many more people.
For sure.
It's a fantastic way to connect with people, maybe drum up some business, build your brand a bit.
It's all about getting your name out there.
Exactly.
Well, this has been awesome. We really went from like the practical side of being a tourist guide all the way to, the power of storytelling and creating a really captivating online presence.
It really shows you how dynamic and multifaceted this job is.
Mhm.
It's not just about being a history buff.
Right.
It's about connecting with people, sharing what you love, and making those unforgettable memories for them.
Love that. And you know me, I love to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Of course.
And we talked earlier about virtual reality and how it's really changing tourism. So here's a question for everyone listening. How could you use VR to enhance your tours, to really stand out? It's something to, think about as you start on this journey. And hey, if you want to keep exploring any of this stuff, maybe a deep dive on public speaking or creating that perfect online portfolio, anything at all, really, you know what to do. Just send those resources over and we'll make it happen. Until then, happy guiding, everyone.